Hey everyone, welcome back to our finale coverage of Fox's The Snake. I am Jenny, joined as always by my co-host, the wonderful Chappell. Chappell, how are we doing? How are we feeling?
Jenny, we did it. We did it. We made it through season one of The Snake. That's a
Mm-hmm.
thing that happened. We were there for it. We started at the beginning. We made it all through
Yeah,
the end. We didn't pop out of a crate halfway or 2/3 of the way through. And
yeah.
so now we can officially say it's in the books, and we have what I guess the first ever snake. Is that what we call the champion of the show? Like the
Here's the thing:
snake.
we have a winner, we have
Yes.
a runner-up, and then we also have a final snake that is neither of those two people. Confusingly, uh we'll talk about it. I don't really know because the way that they phrased the winner, it was the ultimate snake, but then we get to the finale and then somebody else is the snake technically. I have a lot of confused feelings through watching this finale. I don't know about you, Chappelle, but there's lots of stuff that I feel like emotionally we need to work through before we hop back in our own crates here.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just me.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. And so, first of all, first and foremost, thank you all for being here with us this
Yes.
season and subscribing and checking in and liking the videos and leaving comments because it's been so much fun seeing what everybody thinks about the snake. And second, of course, congratulations to our big winner, who I
Yes.
think obviously probably a huge fan favorite, no favorite here on between the two of us, Frankie. Look at that, he
Yes.
did it.
I'm thrilled. Like I'm thrilled with the result. A very happy ending. A winner that I think, really embodies, you know, a type of strategy for this type of show that I think really works. Um and so I'm very, very happy with the result. So it's one that I thought was definitely a possibility. We've talked at length here about the edit and who we thought could potentially be our winner here. And so I'm thrilled that it does work out for Frankie here. A very, very wonderful and worthy winner who I'm very excited to chat with and hear more about this run on the snake. So very, very happy.
Yeah, but Frankie's win, Jenny, I feel like, although we are very happy for Frankie, I know a lot of our listeners are very happy for Frankie.
Of
It seems
course.
like all the contestants are very happy for Frankie. But that said, Frankie's win does bring a lot of things into question about maybe the format, the way the finale worked, how we choose a winner, what the strategy could be, knowing that if there is a season two, this might be the format. Jenny,
Mm-hmm.
it's just it gave us so much to think about because we knew Frankie was a threat. But honestly, is anybody a threat when it comes down to rolling dice at the at the final
And
episode?
I will say I got however far into the episode the snake eyes was and I got to that point and I was like I was almost like, the watching equivalent of flipping, the table. Like I might have flung my monitor across the room like if I
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't just hold on a little bit longer because I definitely was having a big what the hell are we doing moment. Um and this is coming from someone who I have fully enjoyed this show. We have, we've had our little like nitpicky things, but we have talked at length about like how, we obviously love social strategy. We thought that the casting was really, really strong for this show. Um, well produced. So lots to enjoy about this show. And we talked again about what we thought because we never know how these shows
You
end.
never
That's
know.
anytime Chappelle and I get to podcast about a new show, we don't know how it ends, so it's hard to know. And so I know we talked about a few possibilities and how this could end, and I feel like we got like a little bit close on some things, and then some other things I was just like, what? And this is to mean no disrespect for Brett because I honestly think that there was a very, very real possibility that Brett ended up our winner here. And there was, in fact, even while we were still going through the last like 15 minutes of the episode or whatever, I'm like, this actually might be a Brett win. Like I definitely still was on the edge of my seat a little bit. Given that Brett secures his seat in the final two by a game of dice, I think that I would have had a harder time digesting his win, and not because of all of the other things that he accomplished in the game, but for him to be secured final two at the final six just by rolling snake eyes first, that would have drove me insane, and I would have really had a hard time to sit with that. So that was I think that's top story on the board for me of like conflict from this finale, and where I was like, again, very, very frustrated.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I think the only reason why I'm not as annoyed about the dice roll thing as I could be is that the snake has leaned into just dumb luck being an indicator in this game. Before we saw that Alyssa wins the snake at one point just for sitting in the right chair.
Well, that was like the only one. And then why not use this for just another one of the weekly snakes? For them to use a dumb luck one at the final, like that's where I take issue. But again, sorry, continue.
I don't mind. I also take issue. Well, I'm just saying, like, it's easier for me to digest knowing that they've done this before. You know, they've definitely just like eeny, meeny, miny, mode the snake before. And then, you know, people have been victims to that based off of nothing of their own doing. Right. And so that was okay with me a little bit. But yeah, the dice roll is probably the least entertaining way to do this. They end up going about 6 rounds before they are able to knock out everybody who doesn't get a snake eyes, which is I can assure you, amazing television. Watching people just not roll the right numbers 5 times.
You don't want to watch people roll dice over and over again, even edited.
I do not. And I think it takes away, obviously, and we'll get into that, I'm sure. It takes away at a lot of the people's agencies in the game, right? You're playing really hard. People like Alyssa and Jordan, who have done a really good job of keeping a lot of allies in the game. And even Brett, who's kept Jack beside him, who's made this alliance with Derek. It would be great for any of that to kind of pay off in these moments. Now, ultimately, it does pay off if you have made friends with previous snakes, which we will also talk about. But just getting to 6 and then being like, well, it's a crapshoot, a literal crapshoot, like the definition of a crapshoot, for me to get into the next round. And I don't know. I just got to get there. I just got to get to the final 6, and then anything can happen. I think it takes away from a lot of the gameplay that Brett did, of course, that Frankie and was able to do. But even who I would say probably is the biggest person screwed by this, Derek, who I could have foreseen. You know, we talked about Derek's edit throughout the season. They really did him a disservice for making him the standout strategist of the season for the most part. We don't ever hear anybody say anything negative about Derek from the moment Pastor Jacob is gone. Shout out to my pastor. He's back, but you know, for a little time, but we'll talk about him too. But yeah, we get glowing edits for him. We get how strategic he is. We hear him talk about his family. We get all of this stuff, all to know that if you're a Derek fan, you're a Derek fan for not, because they're about to take him out of the gang unceremoniously because of the roll of a dice. And it just, nobody said this thing was fair, but it just doesn't feel right, you know?
Yeah, it's just like what I'm so frustrated about this because here's the thing. I think in a lot of situations, the person that gets screwed by this twist really is someone who gets under edited. Like, think about, you know, like other shows where it's like you're wondering why someone is so under edited until the episode where they kind of get screwed by no fault of their own, and it's kind of their, you know, their boot gets yada yada, and you kind of understand why they're not really a major part of the storyline, and you don't really get to see their storyline like play out because they're essentially a victim of luck. And interestingly for Derek, it's like they gave Derek the winner edit that he deserved based on his gameplay up until that point, as almost like, in my head, I'm almost like, sorry, we screwed you. Here's the edit showing that, like, and again, you know, maybe we'll learn more as we talk to we talked to some of the remaining players in the game at this point, but just even based on the exit interviews thus far and what we were watching on TV, like I think that in this final six, if Derek gets his way into the final two, I think that unless they really screw up picking who the person is that's gonna decide who the winner is, I think Derek is number one likely to win in a lot of scenarios. So for him to not even have a chance to compete in a competition to more so earn his spot there, and he is eliminated by dice, like that really, really sucks. And I have to imagine that there are a lot of fans of Derek who are feeling a little salty by this. Because they made him invest, like they made people invested in his story. And I don't think he should have been edited at all, but it makes it that much more frustrating to see that this is how he gets eliminated here.
Yeah. Great season, but also no, you can't win because the dice didn't roll in your favor. The snake is a game that is going to be largely based on luck. We will find out. I think that this game is probably, if you know that you're going out like this, most games I'm like they're mostly strategy and then there's a little luck, like a game like Big Brother or Survivor. Sometimes the ball just doesn't it doesn't roll in your court the right way or whatever. It doesn't bounce in your direction, whatever the metaphor is. But here I'd say the snake is about 50-50. Like you could win the snake by luck. Who knows? You could basically do everything right and just roll the dice on out the game for no reason. You could I don't know. I just feel like they put you in so many situations where it's just completely out of your control, and we were looking at people who were putting themselves in the position to be saved by the most people. And I do think that is a very big part of the strategy. So maybe I'd probably say it's like 70-30, maybe like 60-40 or something like that, where luck is involved. Because I think that to win, like the final two, I think having the most allies and the most people who will save you is probably the optimal strategy for sure. Like you should not be playing this two-sided game where your side versus somebody else's side and then allowing your side to get picked off. It's all fun and games as long as your side is winning. If they're losing, then you need to flip and try to make some new bonds because you're going to need these people to potentially vote for you to win. And not people like, oh, you're going to need the numbers. You're going to need more opportunities for one person to pick you over the other person. So that does matter. But just knowing that once you get to the final six is essentially out of your hands, it's a really hard pill to swallow. And I'd say that it might be tough for, to plan for something like this for season 2. I'm thinking in season 2, you're like, okay, I got to keep my allies around and I got to make as many friends as possible because I don't know, who knows? I might end up in a situation where I get to roll dice against them. It's like, what?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like, so much of the point of the show and why, some people were playing such good games is that like you're positioning yourself socially where you have like enough people that also have influence that have you high enough on their like list of priorities of people that either you're multiple people's number one or you're like just high enough on most people's rosters of people that they want to protect in the game that you continue to be saved by someone. And no matter who's in the snake position, they're not gunning for you. And building that sort of like goodwill with people over the whole course of the season, only to just be like, well, and now we're going to roll dice and how people feel about you might not even matter. Like that is a little bit of a slap in the face and would make people feel like, okay, I could have spent my entire season really working hard on this and then it might not have even mattered. And I would worry about it kind of like stifling play because people could say, you know what, I'm not going to take the shot on the big dog because you know what, if I don't win, I'd be happy for them to win. And it's going to come down to a dice at some point anyway. And I want to be surrounded, kind of like the Brett thing where he like really wanted to be surrounded by other people that he feels like are, his definition of deserving to be there, and other, beating the best. Right. And so I think that you could see people just like be like, well, you know what, if it's going to come to a dice roll at 6 and I like, then maybe if I make it through that, then I have to win a challenge anyway. My social standing with some of these people doesn't matter. I don't have to get rid of my biggest enemy because it might not even end up mattering. And like, I just felt like it was just such a shift from like the point of the game up until that point, that I just like can't wrap my head around that, the decision from production to do it this way. But listen, I don't work on production, and we still ended up with a good result. We ended up with someone that I really think, like we've been saying all season, that like Frankie has the social game on lock, and like social game wins these kind of games. So it works out, but it's, man, really, really hard to see that be one of the challenges deciding one of the final two.
Yeah, and I was really impressed with Brett in this episode. Brett throughout
Same.
the season, we kind of talked about it in the last time we talked, where it's like Brett has been constantly throughout the season. Like although he was against the pastor, they never took their eye off of Brett. We always got something about Brett, even though he wasn't doing much in the game that we could see. So we knew that he was in contention to be in this spot. We did not think he was going to win just because there wasn't a lot of positive content about the relationships that he had. And the relationships that he had are really going to come into play at the end of this, because as you know, they brought in the past snakes to see who the snakes would decide is the ultimate snake by eliminating those snakes and leaving the one person that both of these two snake contenders were okay with being in the game. And then the last remaining former snake would choose who the new snake was. And I thought, despite how convoluted that is, Brett gave it a fighting shot there. He gave it, I mean, the good old college try. He tried to appeal to Mayor John's his politician views, and saying that he's being impartial and that he's good at seeing both sides and all this other stuff. And it sounded really good. I thought Brett's pitch was amazing, because he does point out that there were times where Frankie wasn't as competitive in the game and that he's been fighting since day one. And I do agree. Brett has been active in the game since day one. It was very clear what side he was on. We knew what he was doing, who he was working with. We didn't see a lot of the more nuances with him on the other side of the house, but Brett was always in the conversation as somebody who was at least competing. Frankie did opt out of a couple challenges. They do overblow him a little bit and make it look like he just quit everything. But it wasn't enough to flip people against Frankie, or at least not Mayor John, who, Jenny, from my perspective, was always going to pick Frankie, and there was nothing Brett could do.
Yeah. I will say, and I agree with everything you said about Brett. Like, I think for his game and the arguments he needs to make against a player like Frankie, he did the best possible job he could do. Like, he did a good job outlining the reasons to respect his game over Frankie's in a way that I don't think was like disrespectful. Like, obviously we get the confessional of him being like, he was a little pissed off because he felt like Frankie gave this like emotional pitch that he was, a little worried that it's like, oh, now I have to, like, am I supposed to be, appealing to people's emotions? Well, no, I think I played just like a really good game. And he's looking at it like from the competitive standpoint. I think he does a really, really good job outlining reasons to consider crowning him the win over Frankie. And, I think that he made John's decision harder than it would have been had Brett not given the speech that he did. I really do think that the only scenario that Brett could have possibly won here is if he somehow got Frankie to let him keep around like Jack. And like, that's it. Like, I really, because I mean, we even hear from McLean as someone who would have given the win to Frankie. So I think that it was always going to be John picking Frankie, but I don't hate the move from Brett to pick someone that he thinks he has the best chance of giving a plea to, and really like feeding into like, hey, you're a politician, you've talked so much about being impartial and looking at the facts, well, let me lay down some facts for you, brother. I think he does a really good job of that, and makes it a little harder for John to make the decision he makes. But I think that there was no situation where John is not going to pick Frankie here.
Yeah, and that's a credit to Frankie, of course, because Frankie is
Of course.
aligned with John throughout the season. We saw that Frankie, Alyssa, and John were kind of a three-headed snake of their own. They also had Jordan. And so when you really look at the makeup of the people who are making this decision, the goal of these people is to eliminate the people who would potentially pick their opponent. And just looking at the list of the past snakes, it was going to be a very difficult task for Brett to be able to get somebody up there that would pick him, just due to the fact that Frankie had so many good relationships in the house. There might have been people that Brett was good with, but Frankie was probably good with them too for the most part. But there were definitely people that everyone knew Brett was going to want in that final spot. And those are the people that you have to go against. That's why this public alliance that he was in, the Bro Alliance, which was essentially Devontae, Jack, Brett, and then McClain as like an additional person in that alliance. McClain, Jack and McClain were both here in the end. Derek as well, as people who could potentially choose him, and that's good. I think, looking back or looking forward to the season 2, I guess you say you align with people who win, align with people who win, because they get to make decisions in the short term, but also in the long term. It doesn't look like it behooves you to kind of be in the middle in a few of those other spots. But for the people who did win, I think the majority of them were definitely leading Frankie, just from what we've seen on the show. Derek could be swayed for sure. Alyssa, Jordan, I'm sure Pastor Jacob had no love for Brett. No disrespect. Pastor Jacob loves everybody, but I'm sure he would have leaned toward Frankie too in that situation. And then you can't really count on Catherine. Now, there was the one person who I was kind of surprised in general, McClain. She said she's unbiased, but she did ultimately say she would have voted for Frankie in that spot too. So it just looked like Brett was up against it when it comes to having enough allies that were in the pool to make the decision here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, who Brett had a best chance against, but like knowing that it's going to come down to putting the sole decision into one person's hands. Like, is there any other show that's like this? And again, I my brain is not operating at its finest right now, so like I don't know, but I'm struggling to think of like any other situation where you are going to collectively have to decide to like let one person be the winner. And the fact that it ends up being John is so funny. Like, it's just really, really funny for a lot of reasons. But yeah, I just think that that's a really difficult situation for Brett. And I do wonder how much, again, not to be like harping on the snake eyes of it all too hard, but clearly I'm still salty about it. I wonder how much that particular win, getting him his spot in the final 2, almost kind of hurts him, because his whole argument, and it was a good argument, was about competing, about playing the game, about, showing up to every challenge, not ever turning away from a challenge, and just competing at a high level. And of course, this is the kind of argument you will get from a professional boxer. This is the kind of person he is. But for him to be the one who gains his spot in a competition that was purely luck, versus Frankie, who actually does win a competition against 4 other people to win his spot there, that had skill. It was partially physical. It required, memory and like knowing who everyone was and the order they were eliminated. I think that perhaps also kind of reduces Brett's argument here and reduces the gravity of him saying like, I won, like I was a competitor. So even though Brett is the one who benefits from what I thought was a really crappy challenge, I think that it actually also does him a disservice, because I think that his plea is so much more impressive if he won like a more you know, impressive competition to get his spot in the final two. He didn't like, you know, maybe he would have won that challenge that Frankie won. I don't know. We didn't see him compete in it because he just rolled dice first and got his way there. So I think that even that kind of impacts his ability to make this argument against Frankie. And again, like you said, props to Frankie. He had great relationships with a lot of people. A lot of people liked him, even if they had alliances with other people. And he wins the most important challenge that gets him there. Like, that is nothing to sneeze at, you know?
Yeah. What did you think about that challenge? It was the puzzle, crate puzzle, but you have to know the boot order, the occupations of the boot order in order to complete the puzzle. And Frankie does it with a injured quad. Yeah.
Yeah. Literally like on the ground for like the entirety of the end of the challenge, because he really rocked his quad there. Okay, here's my feelings, Chappell. You know, when the bar is in hell, you can feel a lot better about things. You know, after how frustrated I was about the Snake Eyes thing, I was like, okay, at least this challenge requires skills. There's a puzzle aspect. Speed is a determinant factor here. You know, knowing memory, knowing the order of the boots. What kind of annoyed me about it is that it was like phrased as such, like, oh, real, if you knew the people and you really connected with them, then like you're gonna be at an advantage. And maybe, you know, playing the game as opposed to watching it, the occupation thing wasn't as like natural, like might as well have been their names for us. I didn't think it was that hard, and I didn't think that you needed to know that much about anyone for you to be able to figure out who is who. And then it really just comes down to it being, did you remember what order everyone was eliminated in? So I think that like I liked the idea of it. I just thought that it could have been a little bit more developed, and you could have made it like a little bit harder in terms of knowing the order, because I don't think that part was really hard. It kind of just came down to like putting a puzzle together quickly. And I could be wrong, because we do see Jack struggle with not remembering that Christine is a teacher.
You gotta get to know people, you know?
I at least liked that this drew on a couple of different skills. But again, I really just feel like both challenges that put people into the final two didn't really embody enough of the spirit of the entire game up until that point. And that's why I really thought that there needed to be more of some sort of social element with the people remaining in the game and or the people that were eliminated. And so that is where my criticism of that comes. But I think that, you know, Frankie winning this is very impressive and really helps pad his resume beyond his social skills to get him into the finale and ultimately win here.
And winning this with an injury is cool, you know?
Yeah,
that also kind of gives him an extra. I felt that was the suspense I felt. I felt like, oh my God. Like, I thought for a second, is Jack gonna win this because Frankie goes out, right, or something like that? I was like, is Alyssa gonna take this because Frankie goes out at the last second? You know, like I was trying to see what was gonna happen here when he goes down, but it does look like it might be like a cramp or something like that, because he gets up and limps through this. I mean, I feel like if you pull a hamstring, they said medic, but they never brought one in. And he
just gets up.
He says like, if I let the medic see me, I'll lose the game or something like that. I'm like, won't they just pause the game until the medic looks at you and then everybody would just pick up where they left off? I don't know.
That's how they would do it in Survivor.
Yeah, in most games. And so I didn't know if it was just like, hey, you get up or
If
else
you need a medic, you're out.
you're out. Sorry. You like bad roll of the dice there, which you needed a medic. So yeah, very interesting for a final
Yeah.
challenge. Not my least favorite thing in this episode by far.
Yeah.
But very happy that Frankie's skills of getting to know each other, like with all these people and getting in good with them to where he knew their relationships. And he knew them quite well because he had the lead over these people, like with him limping. Jack says, I could beat, and I'm faster than the able-bodied Frankie. Okay, so Frankie with a bad leg, I should be able to catch up to, and he wasn't able to. So I think that does help a lot, and it does prove, as you were saying, that Frankie deserves to be here and ultimately deserves this winner spot that he does get at the end.
Yeah. And again, like I think that they could have taken this idea and just maybe like just elaborated on it a little bit further and maybe just drawn upon more of like how well do you know your competitors things, because we've seen stuff like this, like I feel like House of Villains, obviously, like some of those final challenges have really and the quotes and needing to know who said what and sort of thing, like just having a good sense of like what your fellow competitors say and think. I think that that's a little bit more impressive than just like putting together the name of the profession and knowing what order it is. But again, better than rolling a dice. And it is really impressive how Frankie pulls this out. I just think that like we could have been wowed so much more by having like two challenges like this in different ways that were both skill-based challenges and required knowing the game and what has happened. I just would have liked to see a little bit more drawing upon some sort of skill, just to make it feel a little bit more like the two people there truly won their way. And that's the thing. I see a world where Brett does really well in any challenge anyway. So like maybe the result doesn't change, but I just would feel like better about that being how they get there. I promise that I will get over this someday. But today might not be the day that I get over. And I have to think the other people, like that, like you saw Jack was like looking, it's down to him and Derek, and he's looking at him and Derek and being like, we are probably two of the most involved players of this game, like two very formidable like opponents here, and one of us is about to have zero chance of winning because of dice. Like I have to think that all of the people there didn't love this.
Yeah, I'd be very upset, especially if I've been playing as hard as people like Jack and Derek and Frankie. Like I'll get and Brett. Like some of these people, Alyssa, these people that were in these last spots, they have been the snake. They have made hard decisions. They have played both sides. They've done it. I really can't scoff at the work these people put in, because every last person that was in this last little group, they're all in that snake conversation. Derek, Jack, McLean, Jordan, Alyssa, like these were the people, that were making the moves. We don't see Devontae back, even though he had a good showing. We don't see the detective. We do get to see my good pastor, but these people
Amanda.
who made it to the end, no Amanda. These people, they were making decisions. Amanda's probably the one person who's really missing from this, as far as I was concerned. Is like should have been here at the end, but no, I agree.
They only let people that were snakes. You had to win snake at one point to have a chance to be the final snake.
Yeah. So I was not mad at that part, but definitely just kind of seems a little flat for these people who have been playing so hard to just come down to a roll of the dice. And they took it really hard. We saw Jordan like vomiting in the corner. She just was sick to her stomach that this is the kind of like the way the game is panning out for her. Is it like, okay, I got to survive the dice roll, but then I got to win this last puzzle and then I'm out. That's it. So there's nothing else I can do. There's no point in having, have done a lot of this for a lot of the people. Derek kind of goes out in the worst spot though. That's tough. That's so tough for him, but considering that he didn't even get a chance to fight for his life.
And like it honestly, it hurt my heart too because he's saying like it was his daughter Lucy's birthday that day. That was like a benchmark for him of like he wanted to make it to that point because that basically meant like if he made it that point, like he's done well and he, and I hope that that's something that he takes away and that like he still made that benchmark. And but, to see how emotional that is for him where he's like saying like okay this could be luck for him, like good luck, it's Lucy's birthday, like give me some luck here, and he is the last person to the only person unable to get the snake eyes and to go out like that. Really, really, really difficult. And I have to say though, because I really feel like Derek was a good voice of reason throughout the like jury deliberation-esque. I mean, it wasn't really a jury, but like his commentary on the other players as they were eliminated and how he thought that they would have made decisions. He stands up for our pastor by saying, you know, I think that he would have made a really logical, good decision on who to win here, and he would have been impartial. Should we talk about where do we want to go? Do we want to talk about the decision that where we go in the elimination of the potential snake options and how we get to Mayor John ultimately being the person who decides here? Because I feel like there's like a few points here worth discussing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, the show made it very straightforward to talk about this episode, and so if we're gonna have any content today, we need to break down exactly how we got here. That's fine.
Right. And so this is like funny because we have solidified our final two in Frankie and Brett. Two people that I didn't really personally see communicate very much, but they have a nice little like, final dinner and wine, and they are very complimentary to each other. It seems like they have a lot of respect for each other, but very different games. And we get to the final saving ceremony, and I noticed that they kept referring to it as the final saving ceremony. And this is when I start saying, okay, are we getting some sort of chain? And, obviously I did my like, maybe they eliminate people and that's how we get to the final two or something like that. I was trying to come up with something.
This was
And
close.
it was like sort of close to something that we ended up seeing here because Jim basically calls the two of them up. All of our former snakes hop out the crates, and now the power has shifted back to them. But not quite, because we're gonna see Frankie and Brett one by one eliminate someone from contention of being the decider. Two questions off the jump here. One, what is the incentive of getting to be the decider here? Like, I feel like there should have been some sort of extra incentive to really pitch to be the decider, to be the final snake, besides just like, I don't know, the thrill of getting to decide the winner. I just thought this was like an interesting thing to have it all come down to one person, and it just ends up being like, who is the like person that both people feel like they might have a chance with.
I think it worked out like that this time, but I think the ultimate incentive is that you get to pick your friend. Like let's say it's not Mayor John here. Let's say Brett is not as tapped in on what's going on in the game, and he accidentally eliminates Mayor John, and we're sitting here with Alyssa at the end. Alyssa's dying to be in the spot to pick Frankie.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Same thing.
That would be so dumb of Brett.
Right,
exactly. Because
but,
Alyssa tells him.
Right, but there's an alternate universe where Brett's not here. Like based on what we saw with the right dice roll, this could be someone else. Or prior to this, maybe we have someone else in this spot. So let's say maybe it's Christine You know, Christine's probably like, yeah, I want to choose somebody, but do I want to choose Frankie, who I was decently okay with, or do I want to choose Brett, who I have almost no relationship with? It's like, okay, maybe I want to make sure Frankie wins. Or maybe, let's say it's Pastor Jacob ends up in this spot. Pastor Jacob, who would probably be impartial and fair or whatever, but also he didn't work with Brett in the game. Him and Brett were against each other, and he kind of got backstabbed by the bros. So maybe his goal would be to make sure that Brett doesn't win and to give Frankie the win, right? And so there is incentive there, but it's not great incentive to me. Like I guess if you've made good solid bonds with these people, then yeah, you want to see your friend win. But there probably is a world where despite those bonds, you want to award who you would consider the best game player, and then you get to make up your own criteria for what that means. Because we really don't have an answer for what does it mean to be the best player of the snake. Obviously, it works out for Frankie this time, but it could have not worked out for Frankie just as easily because of the dice roll. So, I think that's all you're fighting for here is the chance to be like, one of my friends, someone who has saved me in the past, potentially is up there with somebody who has left me for dead. Let me be the person to crown the person who did me a solid. Let me be the one to pay that back.
And you're right. And I think that also, just to feel like you made your mark on the season, you are the one that ultimately can say, I decided like that who wins. That's even more impactful than just being a vote on the jury. However, I don't want to say everything should just be a jury. Everything is just a vote. It's always just eliminated people. They vote because it's like at a certain point,
love a jury.
We do,
love a jury. It's
and
kind of our shit.
We get to see some really fun results. But let me propose a slightly different option of what they could have done here, and let me know what you think about this, Chappell. So I wonder. And maybe it doesn't happen right at the 6. Maybe we get down. Maybe we have 2 challenges at the final 6 that eliminate 2 people. Whoever comes in last place of both of those challenges, they're automatically eliminated. I would at least find that more palatable than what we had happen here. And let's say we get down to like a final 4. And all of the previously eliminated people, and it could be all of the previously eliminated people, or they could just limit it to the people that were the snake before, like they did. And could they, instead of just doing a vote, which I do think like the vote here would have been interesting to see, because I think maybe Brett would have gotten at least one.
I mean, at least
it would have been nice to see that support. I don't know, just to see it in numbers. However, what I think could have been interesting, because again, if we're thinking about like social positioning in terms of like being high enough on people's lists and being in good enough with people, and maybe just doing your best to not be a huge target of other people and really piss other people off. Could there be like some sort of ranking system where it's like everyone else, they have 4 people in front of them, and they're gonna do a ranking system. They're basically gonna do their own snake chain of being like, I would save this person first, this person second, third, and then this is the person I think that needs to be eliminated here. And based on the overall scoring, maybe it would be a little boring. I don't know, but I just think that it would be a little bit boring. I don't know. At least there's ways that they could have it play out to have it be a little bit more dramatic, I think, from an editing standpoint. But I think that at least then you could see where people are like, you know what, I was going after this person in the game, but I actually am going to rank them number 2. Because I think that they did more in the game. I'm going to put my friend number 1, and I'm going to put this person that people think that I probably wouldn't want to give the win to as number 2. And like, you could see someone win by just being like high enough on other people's, and then you don't have an accidental like person where it's like, oh, they didn't really play that great of a game. They were like really low on a lot of people's priorities list, but they were maybe just not a big threat to people. And so that's how they like got to where they were. I don't know. I just think that like that at least could involve more of the spirit of the game up until that point. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I totally agree. I think everything you just said is completely true. It's a better game mechanic if you know how to win the game. You know, like
Yeah.
that. It's better when you know, like, okay, here are the things that are going to benefit me, these relationships, and then by the end, we quantify those relationships that you have by adding numbers to them. Like that's how most games are played. That is not the game we have, sadly. And so, I do think it's worse TV. Math is never great for me on
Yeah.
television. It never
I
plays well for me.
math.
But
I'm
yeah,
bad at math.
anytime someone
I
starts
should
talking about
add
the
that.
numbers, I'm like, I'm good. I am so good.
Like,
But
what if
I
it's
do
just
think,
4? You're just ranking 4 people.
yeah, but then it's like, well, I rank this one third, and then I rank this one second, and I don't want to hear people talk through that either. Like, I just don't. Not so much us, but like them for sure. Like,
Yeah.
oh well, I'm gonna rank Catherine third because I don't like her, but I don't want her to be last because I want this person. It's like, okay, gosh, but
Can speed
but
through some of it.
yeah. Oh, this is something that would happen on the challenge, like on MTV or whatever
Yeah,
the
yeah,
channel
yeah.
that comes on now. Dear God, I don't know. But yeah, whatever channel that show comes in, that's definitely something they would do, right? They have
Yeah.
like the point system or the star system or something that they always do with how many points you get on. And so it's been done, it's doable, and the show could have definitely did that. It just made the choice to not. And I do want to address what you talked about with the jury. If these former snakes did comprise a jury, they also vote overwhelmingly for Frankie. And so, and
Yeah.
I think the outcome kind of is reflective in that the more it's like almost like a raffle, right? The more people you have that are pro Frankie in the pot, the more likely he is to win anyway. And thus, because he's pro Frankie, they were already going to vote for him, to win the jury as well. So here it kind of feels like this was your opportunity to kind of blow it, right? Like this is Frankie's opportunity to not have his thumb on the pulse of what's going on in the game, and say like, all right, what if, oh man, I think Catherine hates Brett, so I'm going to keep her around. It's like, no, don't do that. Like she might
Yeah.
just vote against you just to spite you because she's Catherine. They wisely get rid of her very quickly. I don't think
Immediately.
we don't have a dodo this season who would fall for something like this. But I think
No.
that's like the high point of what this twist could be, right? This is the moment for somebody like Derek to pull the wool over someone's eyes, right? Like, oh, you really think that this person would vote for you? Or like Brett could have really botched this by making McClain pick at the end, because I think at the naked eye, it seemed like he was going to be able to count on McClain for a vote. She was always team Jack. We've seen she's team Brett, but she goes and tells us, I would have picked Frankie. Frankie eliminates her wisely because I don't think he can count on that. But, I think that if Brett counts on that, I think Brett still loses, And so if what McClain is saying is true, obviously. And so so I think that's what the show is hoping for, right? They're hoping for that moment where somebody who should lose is able to use whatever little snake cunning they have at the end to leave somebody up who would tilt the odds in their favor. And here we just get a steamroll. Frankie has so many options on the board that would choose him. Mac would choose him. Derek would choose him. Mayor John would choose him. Alyssa would choose him. Jordan would choose him. Pastor Jacob would choose him. Like,
I don't think Catherine would. And that is the
no,
one
and
funny
that's why
thing.
she's
Like, I
going
think
first.
I know, but they had to agree upon that. And that was another like messy.
Did they have to agree upon that?
Yes. Okay. And this is like, sorry, I really, really am sorry if I'm coming off like such a complainer here. It's mostly just because I care about shows that I like, doing the best they can and also getting renewed. And I will be a little critical at times. And the logistics of, oh, okay, so you guys are gonna go, because I find out that they are going to one by one eliminate people from being the final snake that decides. And I'm like, okay, how the hell are they going to do this? How do they decide who gets to choose first? How is this fair? My Libra ass is always asking, how is this fair? How do they decide what's even here? And then we get Jim say, because there's an uneven number, the first pick you two will have to decide on together. And to me, that felt like, oh shit, we didn't think this through. We'll just say that the two of them have to decide the first one together. Because again, like, yeah, maybe then that makes it fair. But then, like, then who decides the next one? I just felt like that that game mechanic did not feel super thought out and could have been a little bit more like it could have had way more impact, especially if we had a different combination of two people here. Because like you said, a lot of these people were going to vote for Frankie. So this doesn't end up screwing him over, but I think that there are combinations of people that were in that final 6 that the vote would have been a lot closer. It would have, like, imagine Derek versus Jack. Jack having a lot of friends, but also some of those friends being people that liked Derek and respected Derek's game as well. Like, I do think that there were combinations of people that could have been really impacted by this whole mechanic of deciding who picks first and who gets eliminated first and where they ultimately land. Um, so that was a thing where I was just like, I feel like they had an idea, but they just didn't spend enough time thinking through the like how they would implement it. And that was a little frustrating for me because I was like, this could have been so bad.
I think the only way this is bad is if it's a stalemate on who they want to eliminate first. You know, like I think
Right.
that's the only way. Because let's say you just take Catherine out, right? Let's just say like Catherine's not there. You have a 7-person pool to choose from. Then you just let Brett go first because he was the first one in the finals. He goes first. He eliminates Alyssa.
Or
and then
do the
changes
snake
back with his
eyes
friend.
then. Like, like if we're doing dice roll, like then dice roll to see who goes first. Add this,
Yeah,
sure.
but like let's say you give Brett the first because he was the first one to make it. He was guaranteed into that spot because he won the dice
Even
roll.
more frustrating, actually.
Well, I mean, I guess that's essentially what they did because he just cuts Alyssa first, you know. So like, even if you take Catherine out of it, it's still Alyssa, Jack, blah 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 blah. You know, I think the real issue is that like if they both were like staunch on we are not going to figure out who to eliminate first, and then I think at that point they do a dice roll.
Yeah. I am traumatized by dice rolls at this point. I don't want to see any fucking dice in my near future, okay?
I mean, Jenny, we have seen them get down to the final few people in the saving ceremony and just start drawing straws to save somebody. Do you not remember the like pull out the snake canes?
Yeah, because I was like, the rig is on to save Catherine, and you know what? I'm okay with it right now.
And it should have been on. It should have been on. Because like had they got to the final challenge and they said we're bringing back a fan favorite, we're pulling canes, then we're basically doing the same thing. You know, that's why I said
at
this
least
show
that
has been.
I could say this is a callback to something. I don't know. I just like they could have done this. The snake eyes dice roll would have made a great second or third snake challenge when
great is a
social
crazy word to use.
Okay, would have been more acceptable to me, more palatable to me personally as one of those early challenges while the dynamics are still kind of like settling, and maybe you might have more people throwing because they're like, I don't want to show my cards yet. That's when you want a randomness kind of thing in power, and you know that's maybe how you decide who the snake is or whatever. I don't know. Or the last two people are, well, then it just destroys the whole point. But anyway, they should not use something of this caliber, this level of randomness to decide the first of two final two chairs. Like, I will never get over this. This is I'm so glad that I'm happy with who won. And really, I think the final 6 was super strong. So maybe I wouldn't have been unhappy, but I think I would have been unhappy if whoever won that challenge ends up winning, because it's like I would start doing the, you know, the freaking equations would be going on the screen, and I'm that guy that I can't do the math of being like, would they have done it anyway? Should they have, you know what I mean? It's just like I just really have a hard time co-signing at final 6 someone just getting there by rolling a dice. And I really feel like Brett deserves better too. that probably drove him crazy, watching everyone else get to do a competition that actually required like skill and like physicality. He's probably sitting there being like, I would kill this shit. And then he could have pointed to that and been like, I knew all of you people, like I knew this. I don't know. I just think that like for him to be like, I rolled snake eyes, like that really just dampers his whole argument.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I've noticed, and we've talked about a lot of these kind of hit or quit-esque shows recently.
Mhm.
And I've covered a few, you've covered a few thousand. And I think that the problem here is that they really haven't figured out a good mechanism for ending a lot of these games that have a strong format in the beginning, but once you get down to the last couple people, they haven't figured out how to land the plane. And so they just
Yes.
kind of like do a random thing to get it done. I'm talking about in Outlast, the goal is to just stay outside in the wilderness for as long as possible until everybody else quits, and it ends in a foot race. Nobody talked about a foot race ever being a requirement, but at some point it ends in a race. Honestly, the same thing with Extracted. You know, the goal is to be out there and not get extracted. And at the end, they're like, okay, but now you got to get all the way over here, and the first person to do it wins. And you also have to have a secret password that you like have to guess, like a 4-digit code. Like it's a whole thing that you're like, I didn't prep for none of that because it wasn't a part of the game mechanic from design.
Mhm.
And I think the snake is no different. I think the snake had a cool idea with the safety chain, but at some point, a safety chain has to end because 3 people can't do one. Because it'll just come down to one person
Who won the
deciding who
challenge.
will win. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's going to come down to a challenge. And so they really should have tightened that up a little bit. I think that a lot of shows don't want to be a carbon copy of Big Brother and
Of course.
Survivor and this jury format thing. The thing about the jury format is that it works, and that's why we've been doing it for over 30 years at this point. You know, there's a reason why these shows have existed for so long. It's because they work. You know, being able to let the jury of your peers choose is a way to take the game out of production's hands and say, here you go, y'all decide and y'all be happy with the winner based on what y'all's criteria is. And it really is a hands-off approach in a lot of ways, not totally, but in a lot of ways. And so I think everyone's just trying to find a way to separate themselves from that, and it's just really hard to do. We've seen the traders kind of do it in a way that works, and that's probably why that show was popping. But shows like The Summit have like kind of waffled in those positions where they don't have a strong finish. And so I'm not shocked that we're having this conversation, because the whole time I was watching the episode, I was thinking, well, how the hell are we gonna pick the winner? Right. And it came down to the same thing. A lot of speculating about what coulda, shoulda, woulda happened, and then a completely other thing happening that's left field that nobody could have planned for.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's much like me trying to finish a thought. It like starts off very strong. I got all these ideas, and then before you know it, it's like, oh, I got to wrap this up. Verbal vomit. Can't land the plane to save my life. And somehow they let me podcast. No, it sucks because we see these things, and then it's almost like writing a book and then being like, oh, I'm running out of words. Okay. And then this person died and I'm not going to explain it. And I just felt like the ending was rushed. For us to get from 6 to 2 the way we did was weird. And then suddenly you're relying on things that have nothing to do with all of the things that you were relying on up until that point. I would just love for there to be some other way that isn't just copying jury format and maybe jazzing it up in a certain way, which is why I like suggested the ranking system or something like that. I'm sure many of our very intelligent listeners have some other ideas. Please consider the comments, the think tank for the Snake season 2, if we are so lucky to get it, because I think that it could be good. It needs a little bit of work, and it's really hard to expect people to land the plane when they don't know that they're supposed to land a plane at some point or how. And that's just how the cookie crumbles. It sounds like a lot of these people got into this game not even knowing what it was going to be. So that's kind of part of the gamble here. But I have to think it's just really, really hard to play a game and put in so much work, see it work out for a certain extent, and then just lose from dice, or just, not come first in a competition. Yeah, I would love to see the end game rethought and reworked, because I do think that it is a very fun concept. And the casting was, we saw some
Loved
really,
it.
really great characters this season. Like, these are all people that I would love to see play another format of a game, because I'm like, the wheels are turning, and I'm thinking about like how I could see them implement some of the things that they've learned from this game into another game. Like, I do think that we have some star potential here. So I'm grateful for the experience as a whole. And again, incredible winner. Like,
Incredible.
Frankie is a me type winner. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I love like
That big four
a,
energy.
a social butterfly, like I
Mm,
love it. I love it. So
yeah.
yeah, that's where we're at with this. Chappell, what else from the finale have we not touched on here? I know I've been ranting and raving, but I did warn you were gonna get spicy Jenny today.
No, it's fine. There's nothing else to talk about for this finale, except I do want to highlight again our winner, Frankie. I mean, like you said, we've been highlighting him throughout the season. He definitely got quieter editing moments throughout. I think they were really hyping up Derek because he gets screwed majorly
Yeah.
in this episode. But Frankie is a person that a lot of people didn't say negative things about. Frankie is somebody who had a lot of good bonds with people. He was locked in strategically. He knew who his allies were. Alyssa and Jordan, and sometimes Derek, and also Mayor John. Like, I think that for a game that's going to come down to whose social bond with a past snake is the best, I think that Frankie probably wins this game more times than not if he
Yes.
can survive the dice roll. And
Yeah.
so I have nothing but good things to say about Frankie, and I'm very impressed again with Brett too, as somebody who we didn't really see coming, but who did put up a valiant effort in these
Mhm.
final rounds. Put up a hell of a fight, man. I think that there is that one moment where he says, Mayor John is going to be unbiased, or at least should be. And if he isn't, then I'm not going to really respect that. And to that, I'd say, Brett, that's not the game. The game is not about unbiased. The whole entire game, from beginning to end, is the one thing that's consistent, is that your biases are what exactly is going to get you this far. It's what's going to help you choose the people that you're eliminating as well, or the people that you're saving at the very least. And you want your allies in the end to make these hard decisions. So it's easy for him to say that when, on the flip side, had this been Jack, it wouldn't have mattered that Frankie played an incredible game because Brett was getting chosen,
Mhm.
and so very happy to see both of them do well. And I would love to see what else they're able to do in the reality TV world if it comes to it. But I can't, we got a very feel good story with Frankie winning, and I'm very proud to watch this for him. Hopefully,
Yeah.
he does big things in the future with all that money.
Yeah, no, again, it's like, not only is it someone that I feel like really deserved it and understood one of the ways that you can win a game like this and play it, and did such a like impressive job. Like, the week that John goes home, Jack should have eliminated Frankie. You know what I mean? Like, he saw
Mm-hmm.
him as one of his biggest threats. And obviously, like, you can't be results oriented because, like, of how we ended up where we were. But like, there was a situation where Frankie, like, wasn't gonna get there. So for him to, like, you know, appeal emotionally and have people like Jack be like, I also kind of like Frankie. I don't want to upset him, and I don't want to upset his friends. I'm gonna keep him around. He ends up, making it to the final two here. Very, very impressive stuff. So I'm very, very happy with that. And I'd like to see, I don't know. I'm just like thinking about some of these like bro type, like comp beast people that we see on our like Big Brothers, for example. Like, I would like to see a Brett play, because I actually think that, just based on what people said about him, I'm like, I don't even feel like we fully saw his game. I don't know that it was really fully shown in the edit, like how much he was doing strategically. And he was gaming hard. Like for him, like we were almost getting like old school villain at the end for him to be like, you know, I'm not here for a sob story. Like, let me tell you why I'm here. So you know, a very good final two, very fun, and you know, all in all, I'm very happy with the season. It's been a good journey, and I've appreciated all of the listeners and people who stuck around with us. It's been a good time.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this, make sure you subscribed.
Yes.
GetRHAP.com can help you subscribe, or if you're watching our beautiful faces here on our YouTube page, make sure you tune into that and subscribe. Click the like button on the video, and let Rob know you want us to talk about other shows. You know, we're when the snake ends, that means we go back into our crates, and so we will not be here talking about. There's no next snake.
Back. Yeah, don't send me back into my crate. I'm very hopeful that there's something else wild around the corner waiting for Chappell and I to bring our chaotic madness to and our weird strategic ramblings. Because this has been a really good time. I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone else's comments, how you felt about the finale. You know, feel free to let us know either in the comments or obviously follow us on social media. Send your tweets, your skeets, whatever it is that you're doing. We love hearing from you. And once again, thank you so much for following us through this journey of the snake. We will be back with some exit interviews. I believe we will be talking to, in the very least, our winner Frankie and our runner-up Brett. So stay tuned for those to come out. And who knows, maybe we'll get a chance to speak to some of our other big names from the season at some point, hopefully. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, in the meantime, Chappell, what else do you have going on? You know, you're not going to fully get in the crate. You do things outside of the crate at other times, right? What are you doing?
Well, of course, I have my own podcast, so that's easy to not get in the crate when you're in the face of it. So it's like I'm JimJefferies over there. So YouTube.com/@RHAP Kickback. That's RECAP Kickback. Okay, that's the podcast. You go there, YouTube, click subscribe, click like on whatever video you see, and support and join the Chappell community over there because we're having a good time talking about things such as Flavor of Love live every week. This week we are talking about the finale. We finally made it, and so we get to see Chantel see for the first time how season 1 ends and what will lead us into our season 2 coverage of Flavor of Love. Also, you can catch me on talking to Mari every week on Recap Kickback about various titles. This week we're talking about the Jussie Smollett documentary on Netflix. There was a big hoax a couple years ago, and Mari's going to put her true crime hat on to talk about that with me on that podcast. And I think we're going to have the Was It Good Though podcast people on as a guest, so that'll be fun too. And then over on RHAP specifically, I am in the crate, but it's a paywall crate. Okay, you pay and then you go in the crate, and it's real sloppy because I'm talking about
crate.
It's a nasty crate. In Big Brother 27, sloppy content. We're over there talking about it all. See what it means to go full Lisa Rinna on that podcast, and many, many more things by subscribing to RHAP and becoming a patron of our patron community on this network. And then finally, last but not least, you can catch me talking about Australian Survivor versus the World with Shannon every week. I'm covering the Sunday episodes. So if you are not caught up, please go catch up. It's an amazing season, and there's a lot to talk about over there. But you can keep up with all of my musings and my thoughts about reality TV on all social media platforms at Recap Kickback. What about you, Jenny?
I am, hopping back in the crate, but hopefully it won't be too long before I hop back out and get to do some more with you, Chappell. There's always bad television around the corner, and sometimes it ends up being good, and I feel really, really good about how this went. There was a podcast called Hit or Quit, and it was like every time we're like, oh, this is gonna be really bad. I feel like the snake. Really, really happy with how that went. But I will be appearing on the Thursday night recap of Big Brother 27. So stay tuned for that. That should be fun, recapping the upcoming eviction episode. And if you're going to be at the New York live show, I'll be there.
Hey.
Yeah, high five. Come say hi to Chappell and I.
We will be probably together.
We will be together, and we will be having a good time, okay? And we will be uncrated. Uncrated, unleashed. Look the F out.
Yeah. I have some
Yeah.
insider scoop that maybe one of the snake cast might be in attendance as well.
Oh,
So I won't tip my
I
hand too
wondered
much,
where that
but
was at. I wondered where that
yeah,
might be at.
I believe. Hey, it's, the ball is in their court, and so if Queen Catherine decides to pop out of her crate, you
Woo!
don't want to miss that
The
by
name
missing the
drop.
RHAP live show. I'm just saying. I'm not saying she's gonna be there for sure,
Okay.
but the option is out
But
there for her to take it.
and those are 3 people in the same room that you should really be concerned about.
Oh
You
my
get Chappell
god,
and I, and then Queen Catherine.
we should probably
It's
be
gonna
concerned.
it's gonna be a wild time. She's gonna eat us up.
I might let her.
Anyway, follow Chappell at Recap Kickback. Follow me at Jenny Autumn. Thank you again, everyone. Stay tuned for exit interviews with Frankie and Brett. And in the meantime, take very good care of yourself. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.